They all knew it somewhere deep down. Rob Reiner knew it. Michelle knew it. Romy sensed it. Nick felt it in his own way. And Jake knew it too. Still, Jake Reiner believed this Christmas would be different. He clung to that belief like a lifeline. He planned everything carefully. The dinner table set just right. The lights warm and steady. Music chosen with intention. Every detail locked in place. In his mind, he saw the scene clearly. Sitting across from his parents again in their Brentwood home after years of distance. As if nothing had ever cracked between them. As if time itself had decided to be kind. But on December 14th, that picture shattered. One phone call was all it took. In seconds, Jake's world flipped upside down. His parents, Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer Reiner, were gone. The house that held every childhood memory was suddenly a crime scene. And then came the name that turned grief into something far more brutal. Nick Reiner, his younger brother. The same brother Jake had sworn to protect no matter what. The pain wasn't just grief. It was disbelief colliding with anger. Shock mixing with a sense of dread he'd carried for years. Not long after, Jake appeared on KCBS and said words that froze the room. "I warned my parents," he admitted. "I was afraid one day he'd do something that couldn't be undone." That wasn't emotion spilling out in the heat of the moment. That was years of tension finally breaking through silence. The sound of trust collapsing after being stretched too thin for too long. For the first time, Jake spoke openly about what had been eating at him for years. The favoritism, the endless excuses, the blind loyalty that always shielded Nick. He said it didn't come out of nowhere. It built slowly, mistake by mistake, until the family could no longer hold together. So when Nick later called from custody, pleading, claiming innocence, begging Jake to help with bail, Jake didn't hesitate. He said no, not out of revenge, not out of cruelty, but because deep down, he knew this family had been cracking for years. And Nick was the break that could never be sealed again. By December 17th, Los Angeles felt heavy under a quiet sky. As Nick climbed courthouse steps across town, Jake sat beneath harsh studio lights at KCBS, the newsroom where he'd spent most of his life building credibility. Cameras rolled. Lights burned hot. Emotions were locked down as tightly as he could manage. The lighting carved shadows into his face, making him look thinner, worn down. His eyes were hollow from nights without sleep. His dark suit clung to a tall frame that now seemed to carry weight it was never meant to hold. This wasn't the calm, composed reporter viewers were used to. This was a man stretched thin by loss, pressure, and years of swallowed words. He sat upright, but his body told the truth. Shoulders tight, hands clenched together on the desk, knuckles pale from gripping too hard. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked, rough, like every word had to fight its way out. "I've sat here through so many long nights," he said, "but never one like this." And that's when the past began to spill out. Memories came in uneven waves as Jake spoke about growing up with the Reiner name. A name that made others smile, but always felt too heavy for him, like wearing a coat 3 sizes too big. Impressive from the outside, suffocating on the inside. Jake Reiner was born on May 6, 1991, in Los Angeles, into a world shaped by art and storytelling. His father, a legendary director. His mother, a gifted photographer. Creativity surrounded him from day one. As the oldest child, he grew up among laughter, film talk, and family legends. His grandfather's humor echoed through the house. Old stories played on repeat. From the outside, it looked warm, exciting, almost unreal. But it wasn't perfect. Not even close. Jake grew up with his younger sister Romy and his little brother Nick. Being the oldest meant learning early how to step aside. He gave up space, attention, and eventually parts of himself. It felt like his role had already been written before he ever had a say. Nick was smaller, quieter, more fragile. So Jake learned to shrink himself. He gave up his favorite toys, moved out of his room, stayed quiet when things went wrong. Whenever Jake tried to speak up, someone would say, "He's still little," and Jake would nod. Swallowing everything like that was his responsibility. Being the big brother meant locking feelings away. Nick drew more concern, more protection, more focus. When Nick got upset, the entire house shifted. Conversations stopped. Laughter faded. Jake learned to disappear into silence just to keep peace. "I'm fine," he'd whisper to himself. No one asked. But the words became armor. What began as love slowly turned into erasing who he was. His parents adored Nick, not out of neglect, but fear. The kind that holds too tightly. They defended him, explained things away, believed patience would fix everything. But for Jake, that patience came at a cost. His voice. He remembered moments when Nick's outbursts were brushed off with a laugh, while Jake learned to carry the weight quietly, again and again. Michelle would pull Nick close and whisper, "He's just having a hard time." Jake stood right there, understanding, but feeling a distance grow wider every year. He never blamed his parents. He knew their love came from protection and fear. But as Jake grew older, that weight didn't disappear. It landed squarely on his shoulders. He became the anchor, the calm one, the one who never caused trouble. "I'm used to it," he once told his mother, half joking. She smiled, never realizing it wasn't a casual remark. It was a signal no one stopped to hear. Baseball became Jake's safe place, a ritual passed down through generations. Rob would take Jake to Dodger Stadium. Father and son sitting side by side beneath the California sun. Innings passing slowly. "My father passed his love of baseball to me," Rob once said. "And I passed it to Jake." Those moments were real joy. But even in those memories, Nick's shadow remained. When Nick was 15, things began to change. Subtle at first. Tired eyes. Shifting moods. Disappearances without explanation. Jake noticed everything. He thought he's asking for help. But the chaos grew louder. Year after year, Nick moved between schools, programs, promises, always followed by setbacks. Every time Nick said, "I'll do better," hope sparked again. Jake wanted to believe, but he'd believed too many times already. The hardest part wasn't just watching Nick struggle. It was watching his parents burn out. Each setback drained them. Rob aged quickly. His shoulders slumped under quiet worry. Michelle lived on edge, waiting for calls. One night, Jake overheard his mother say, "As long as he's breathing, I won't give up." That line stayed with him. They weren't living anymore. They were surviving. Jake learned to stay observant, quiet. The idea of leaving home crept in, not to escape but to breathe. Fame didn't excite him, scared him, so he chose journalism. At Syracuse University, something finally clicked. Newsrooms gave him purpose. After graduating, he worked his way up. Small stations, long nights earned respect. Brick by brick, he built his own path. Then December 14th arrived. While Jake was on set in New York, the call came. Cold. Fast. His parents were gone. And the person accused was his brother. The Christmas he'd imagined vanished forever. When Nick later called from custody, pleading for help, Jake listened. Heartbreaking, memories crashing in. But when the request came, Jake knew his answer. "I can't." Not because he stopped loving his brother, but because sometimes love alone isn't enough. When Jake's report ended that night, the world stood still. Viewers watched in silence. No shouting, no noise, just heartbreak. Jake wasn't a reporter anymore. He was a son standing exposed before millions. And his story left behind an uncomfortable truth. Family isn't built on love alone. It's built on listening before things break beyond repair. Some warnings don't get second chances. Some holidays never come back the same.